A story of true infidelity. My young friend and I had to spend the night at a hotel due to a stuck car. Unpredictable events often occur in life. My mind wandered to all the events leading up to that point that night as I sat alone in a cramped motel room. Despite my best efforts to remain calm, the months spent apart from my husband Thomas at work in another city took their toll on me. He was missed. It wasn't simply his absence, the care and attention he had been providing had also been dwindling. What engulfed me on those lengthy, lonely nights was the emotional distance. I never thought that asking my young friend, Ethan, to accompany his dad on a trip would result in us being stuck in a small hotel room, each of us occupying a single sofa. I had no clue how drastically my life would be altered by what happened that night. Allow me to begin by telling you the whole story. The smallest thing, I promise you, the story's climax will be more thrilling than you could have imagined. I stole a quick look at my reflection in the mirror that morning on my way out the door. I felt anxious, to be sure, but I managed to pull it off. I was still desirable despite Thomas's recent abandonment of me. It was as if my spirit had not abandoned me. However, those sentiments alone were insufficient. I was unsatisfied. I yelled out to Ethan from behind as he was finishing his breakfast in the kitchen. It's no secret that you're going off to college in the fall. However, your driving may use some improvement. Join your father and me, please. His cheeky smirk remained constant as he gazed at me. Ethan was a lovely kid with a quirky sense of humor, but he did have his moments of trouble. Okay, stepmother, he teased, but only if you promise to have Dad get me a nicer automobile for the summer. I responded with a quick, we'll talk about that, since I was excited to begin our journey. This vacation was not going to pan out, though I had no clue. For the past 2 hours, we had been on the road. In the backseat, I fiddled with my phone, listening to Ethan play weird songs and tell him jokes that only he could understand. All of a sudden, the vehicle made a horrible noise, a loud hiss, before turning off entirely. Ethan, what's happening? So as not to come out as overly worried, I inquired. With a mumble, he pulled over to the side of the road, his frustration evident. It seems like the car broke down, he said. Then, out of nowhere, we found ourselves surrounded by nothing. No one was around to provide assistance, and my phone signal was almost non-existent. For 2 hours, we argued, tried to fix the car by calling every mechanic we could locate, and then gave up. The inevitable had to be accepted by us in due time. Going to the closest motel for the night was our only choice. I stood behind Ethan, fuming with frustration, at the motel reception as he spoke with the counter clerk. I was under the impression that Thomas would be enraged upon learning of this. Oddly enough, it seemed like it didn't matter much at that very moment. I had a feeling that tonight would be the one that changed everything. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and enable notifications before this story takes an even more surprising turn. What comes next will captivate you, I assure you. Also, I really need your encouragement in the comments section. I find solace and camaraderie in it, and I derive a certain calm, individual fulfillment from it. As we entered the chamber and turned the handle, a thick, unnerving quiet enveloped us, crushing any optimism I had. I found it difficult to even turn around in the cramped, rather suffocating room. There was complete darkness in the room save for the sofa, nightstand, and a soft, swaying ceiling light. Its soft light revealed the shapes of my thoughts as they floated through the dark night, creating an atmosphere that was at once reassuring and eerie. Above me, the ceiling hung low and oppressively, and the air conditioner could hardly muster a sigh of relief. The world felt incredibly far as the one small window provided no more than a glimpse of the parking lot. A quiet murmur crossed my mind. This is it. His grin took me by surprise. It shouldn't have, but it did, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I was beginning to wonder whether spending the night alone with Ethan wasn't as bad as I had imagined, despite how much I despised the thought. As I stood there, it hit me. Being in Ethan's company brought up feelings and uncertainties from my youth that I still don't really comprehend. A 5-star hotel? I didn't even know that was an option. For some reason, I found myself wondering what it meant. The appeal of opulence, the assurance of ease, but I questioned, deep down, whether it could ever satisfy the emptiness inside. Do the promises and expectations symbolized by the stars ever match up with the reality of what we truly feelings? This one night is all we got. Stepmother, let's take a moment to relax. I was already frustrated, and his condescending tone, accented with that cheeky grin, only made things worse. I was left to deal with feelings I couldn't identify. Still, I couldn't bring myself to completely despise Ethan's laid-back demeanor, even though I would never admit it. Being in his presence awoke a profound emotion in me. Feelings that I had a hard time putting my finger on are building up inside of me. Suffocating and unrelenting, the warmth envelops me like a huge blanket. With every passing second, the strain mounts, and I take solace in stroking my forehead. Ethan, who I am seeing, lays down on his back on the sofa and seems to let the world's troubles melt away as he carelessly tumbles upon it. You have the kingdom here. Amelia, make yourself at home by taking as much time as you need. I couldn't help but stare at him for an extremely brief second. I felt a feeling of time passing and the evolution of connections when I realized how much he had grown. The complexity of attraction and the power of outward appearances to elicit such profound emotions and ideas caused me to halt and contemplate. Still, I couldn't get the notion that it was lurking in the recesses of my mind. And I couldn't seem to shake it. When I'm alone with my thoughts, I can't help but think about how he was my young friend and Thomas's young friend. It evokes a complex mix of emotions in me, a mix of connection and mystery that words fail to describe. I shut the door softly behind me as I entered the restroom. Isolating myself from the outside world, I stared intently at my reflection in the mirror for that little period. Even though the warmth was holding me down and causing my hair to cling to my skin, I couldn't help but feel beautiful in that very moment. Thinking about the lingering embers of that fire inside made me stop and contemplate. I switched on the shower and let the water trickle down as I stepped under it, hoping that the hot water would melt away the knots of emotion that had taken up residence in my mind. Sitting calmly, I can't help but think about how 47 years old I am. Ethan is now an adult, quite different from the little boy I remember. At the age of 22, he is about to start a new chapter in his life as he gets ready to start college. We are here, trapped in this cramped hotel room, experiencing these brief moments side by side. I found it difficult to articulate the complex emotions evoked by the idea, which ran deep within me. I found myself reflecting on our times together, and Thomas gradually made an appearance in my thoughts. I am trapped in this hotel room with your young friend, and I am overwhelmed by a storm of emotions. I don't know what to do with all this information. Thomas wanted to surprise you, be close to you, and share moments with you. I was embraced by a cozy cocoon of warmth as the steam filled the cramped bathroom. As the world around me melted away, leaving behind nothing except the soothing sound of water falling, I stood there, absorbed in contemplation. As I breathed in and out through the mist, I was able to contemplate the events of the day and the emotions whirling around inside me. The comforting warmth encircled me, easing my muscles, yet my mind raced like a tornado, unwilling to stop spinning. An unanticipated warmth welled up inside of me as I saw Ethan smile and experienced the comfort of his company. Standing beneath the gushing water, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. Instinctively, I sensed the undeniable beginnings of transformation, but I couldn't put my finger on what this spark could become. In the end, I made it down for supper, believing that by settling down from my whirlwind of ideas, I may get some perspective. I put on a loose-fitting dress and enjoyed the way the cloth clung to me whenever I moved. The clothing seemed to Beetlejuice some wisdom about elegance and ease, beckoning me to consider the circumstances that had brought me to this point. At that same second, it seemed tailor-made for this oppressive warmth. But there was more. It encircled me like a warm hug, easing the unfamiliar tension that had taken up residence inside me and encouraging me to relax and take a deep breath. Despite its relatively small size, the hotel restaurant had an atmosphere of warmth and friendliness. I wanted nothing more than to have a light dinner and a bottle of wine so I could feel the soothing embrace of calm. As the sun set, I was bathed in the warm light of the street lights outside the hotel, which had a nostalgic quality to it and made everything seem more familiar. My mind kept going back to the room upstairs while I sat there, a place where painful memories clung to my heart. Sometimes I daydream about what Ethan could be up to right now. It's difficult to fathom how someone so energetic and restless might find happiness in a cramped space. The atmosphere is thick with tension, and I can really feel it crushing his spirit. His laid-back demeanor, though, set off a cascade of feelings in me that I still don't fully understand or know how to put into words. I sipped the rest of my wine and glanced down at my plate before slowly making my way up the stairs. A profound silence engulfed me as I entered the room, enveloping my thoughts like a warm embrace. The image that greeted me as I opened the door rendered me speechless, and I lingered in a state of profound contemplation for a while. After a refreshing shower, I discovered Ethan peacefully sleeping in sofa, ensconced in his jacket, completely oblivious to his surroundings. In that moment, her jacket slipped from her shoulders, revealing the slim, toned figure that lay beneath. Her seemingly contradictory qualities of fragility and strength held me spellbound, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from the scene. I felt as if I were dreaming as my damp hair gentle gesture my forehead and a subtle smile lingered on my lips. The stillness around me seemed to amplify the thud of my heart. Last but not least, I encountered a discovery I had not expected. I stood there at the door for a second, paralyzed by the weight of uncertainty and unsure of what to do next. I was overwhelmed by a strange jumble of emotions, all competing for my focus. I felt a flush of blush come over me as a wave of shame washed over me. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from his. "I don't understand what you're doing, Amelia." Thomas is the father of my young friend. A calm tempest of guilt washed over me, but I couldn't help but be captivated by the part of his jacket that had fallen off, exposing more skin than I had bargained for. Something about what I saw stirred a soft warmth within of me. The claustrophobic chamber intensified my emotions, engulfing me like a familiar yet oppressive cloak. Then it hit me. There wasn't another sofa in the world. There was just the crushing loneliness that came from all the decisions I'd made and the ones I hadn't. In the stillness of the night, I couldn't help but wonder if she slept next to him, surrounded by warmth, or if she preferred to sit alone. Thinking as the hours passed, the very idea of locating a chair in this oppressive warmth seemed like a pipe dream. There were so many unspoken emotions and ideas swirling around in that room that time appeared to stand still as I entered. It was as if the room were being gently embraced by the sound of Ethan's rhythmic and steady breathing as I sat there. My internal conflict threw me for a loop as I took a deep breath and tried to concentrate. In order to put the pieces of my puzzle together, I had to take a moment to collect my feelings and ideas. I mumbled to Amelia, "All right," as the pressure of the moment began to crush me. "Just one night, nothing more. It doesn't seem like this matters. It all started with this lovely plan to surprise Thomas. But now I'm just standing here, unsure of what to do. In spite of everything going on around me, I can't help but want to remain reasonable and keep my cool." I walked slowly to the sofa, staring blankly at Ethan as I sank into deep contemplation. His innocent expression added another layer of difficulty to my already jumbled thoughts and feelings. I sat on the side of the sofa, daydreaming about the events that would transpire that night. A soft noise roused me from my sleep in the pitch blackness of the night. I gently opened my eyes and scanned the room in a state of serene concentration. Allowing the scene around me to come into focus, I sensed a slight movement in the sofa and looked over at Ethan, who was snoring lightly as he slept. As I observed him, I could see the sleepiness in his eyes as he ran his fingers through his hair, the light scratching of his scalp creating a cadence that seemed to calm him down. As I lay there, half awake, I pretended to be engrossed in my thoughts while I watched him. However, despite the calm exterior, a tempest raged deep inside me. I suddenly felt really conscious of it. His intense staring forces me to think more deeply. My pulse began to race, and a tidal surge of feelings swept over me, causing me to mirror the events taking place around me. As his intense stare fell on me, a surge of exposed emotion surged through me. I put on an act of lethargy and remained still in an effort to maintain the mask. Still, unsettling and unresolved feelings swung about inside of me. The gravity of the situation enveloped me as I stood there. I hid in the bathroom to get away from the chaos in my head, not realizing how complex my ideas had gotten. There was an air of thoughtful contemplation in every step. I stood in front of the mirror, taking in not just my reflection but also the subtle power and fragility that reside there. I couldn't help but acknowledge the profound impact that time has had on shaping my identity and self-perception. An unanticipated warmth started to unfold within of me as I observed the delicate flexing of his muscles in response to his movements. I couldn't do anything about it. During that peaceful time, I was confronted with two significant insights. Part of me felt an odd acceptance of what was happening as I watched Ethan. It was almost as if I didn't want to interfere, to ruin the moment because it was so intertwined with my emotions. I reached into the closet and retrieved a pair of shorts. My fingers gentle gesture the cloth. Each thread murmurs stories of warmer days and fading moments, weighing down the moment with memories. I felt his eyes dart over to me as he continued working. It was a little, almost nervous look, as if he were looking for indicators that I was awake, or if I was just pretending to be. The intensity of their stares caused a whirlwind of feelings I couldn't put my finger on. I was precariously poised, attempting to suppress my emotions while giving way to the overwhelming intensity of the moment. I lingered in the room's silence after slipping into the shorts, clearly not ready to return to the sofa's cozy embrace. At that very second, she took a seat in the room's far corner, staring intently at me as though she were delving into the recesses of my mind. Unsettling as it was, the weight of their stare stirred something deep and unfathomable in my spirit. Immersed in the tranquility, I pretended to fall asleep as I lay there with my eyes closed. However, for what amount of time could I keep this mask on? Finally, I broke down into a state of complete stillness as I realized I could not take it any longer. Looking directly into Ethan's eyes, I felt compelled to spill my guts and share all that was going on in my mind. Ethan, I feel a profound emotion whenever you're around. The weight of those remarks was so great that I felt it pressing down on me. A sudden and overwhelming sense of clarity came over me, and I knew then that my world had changed forever. I could feel the weight of the silence surrounding us as Ethan's eyes briefly twitched. He took a long breath, as if collecting his scattered thoughts, and then he started to speak his mind. Fumable, with a little hesitation. "Amelia, I'm completely confused," he murmured with a quiet but determined voice. "It seems like forever since my dad left, and we've been sharing this room ever since. My feelings for you are growing and developing in ways I could never have imagined as time goes on. At times, I struggle to contain the profound awe that arises within me for you. Currently, my thoughts are shrouded in a weird fog, as if I were engrossed in a dream." His unexpected remarks stirred a profound emotion within me. Unfalteringly, Ethan locked eyes with me, as if everything else around us vanished into thin air. I was captivated by the sincerity and intensity that enveloped me as I met his gaze. The impending dawn has me thinking about the car repair job that lies ahead. A gentle reminder of the obligations that lie ahead is the idea of getting up early that keeps popping into my head. As I continue on this serene voyage into my own mind, I can feel the passing of time slipping away from me. There was a quiver in his voice, as if he were looking within for comfort, but his stare was fixed and unmoving, as if he were well grounded. "Amelia, I can't help but look at you right now. Right now, I'm dealing with feelings I've never experienced before." I could hear my heart pounding in the stillness all around me. I shifted to the edge of the sofa and took a seat in the chair that faced him at that same time. I felt a surge of wordless emotions as our eyes locked. We were deeply connected, in a way that words couldn't express. We were silent for a long time at that peaceful moment. There was an air of unspoken ideas between us as he shifted his gaze toward me. His lips curled slightly into a purse. "I can't help but think of you, Ethan, as I sit here. Your memory softly echoes in my thoughts, bringing back the times we spent together. Looking back, I can't help but wonder what we would have accomplished had we made other decisions along the way." A mixture of nostalgia and longing stirs inside me as I engage in peaceful thought. Your whereabouts, the things that occupy your mind, and the frequency with which you consider me are all things that I ponder. This bond seems delicate and deep, and there's a depth to these emotions. The memories envelop me in this tranquility, cascading over me like a gentle current, bringing back vivid images of the intricate and beautiful path we traveled together. With a tone that was equal parts awe and rebellion, I murmured gently, "Is this all you're trying to say?" Looking into Ethan's eyes, I could feel a great depth of feelings to feel this moment through the calm resonance of emotions rather than the cacophony of words. The intensity of his stare told me all I needed to know. Even though he didn't say a word, at that very second, a crushing reality hit me. I realized we had gone too far and couldn't turn back now. Looking into his eyes brought a surge of bravery and a powerful, nearly overwhelming feelings that swelled in my heart. The intensity and ambivalence in his stare drew me in. I could feel my mind squeezing my chest as I took a deep breath. I regained my voice and spoke with a steady, determined tone when I got back on my feet. I murmured to Ethan in an effort to get his undivided attention. "Your jacket was softly parted as I entered the room, and I felt an intense want to stare at you, unable to tear my eyes away. While you slept soundly, I was more moved than I could have imagined. You can't run away from these feelings. In our hearts, we both know that to be true." I got to my feet cautiously, taking a cautious step forward as my words echoed in the silence. I could feel his breath speeding, a mirror of the tension between us, and his eyes followed my every move. A whirlwind of intense feelings washed over me. Feeling the gravity of the situation, I carefully untied my dress's sash as my fingers reached for it. I could feel the tension building between us, reflected in his breathing, as it subtly changed with every soft tug. My voice wavered as I spoke, and I pondered the need of maintaining a steady equilibrium while I did so. I slowly unzipped the back of my dress, taking my time and feeling the weight of the task with each motion. I felt exposed and vulnerable in that peaceful moment as the fabric delicately fell from my shoulders and tumbled to the floor. The gentle presence of the wind on my skin seemed to fan the flames of my inner conflict. And every breath was a reminder of the anguish I was experiencing. There was an instantaneous bond between us. His eyes seemed to contain a language of feelings and thoughts that he chose not to express. It was as though the passage of time halted, and I could perceive the depths of his being reflected in my own. I was overcome with an overwhelming sense of adoration and an irresistible attraction in an instant that was both surprising and profound. It was as if the lingering silence had woven an unspoken bond between us, a thread that bound our emotions in a manner that words could never express. Here, at this seemingly out-of-this-world instant, I sensed the profound bond of our dreams. I drew nearer, my eyes fixed on his, and the weight of our silence weighed on my every step. In my head, I was murmuring something about whether or not we understood each other at this very moment. Ethan kept staring at me, his visage frozen in time, and his intensity palpable, as if it were trying to penetrate my very being. At that very moment, he carefully stood up, his eyes fixed on mine the whole time, and turned on the light, casting a warm glow around us. The room was bathed in a gentle light as he approached and turned the key in the lock. I felt my heart begin to pound, its rhythm resonating in the quietness all around. There seemed to be no passing of time, the only thing that mattered was the bond we shared at that very moment. I felt my heart race and my stomach knot up with anticipation as he stepped closer to me. The way he seemed to be probing my whole being for an unstated truth was unsettling. However, we were both acutely aware of the subtle attraction that persisted in the air between us. I was about to fall, but as he got closer, he stretched out and steadied me on an instinct. I was taken aback by the gesture, not by its meaning, but by the unfamiliarity of feeling supported again, which stirred something deep inside. There was an immediate and profound stillness between us, as if to contain all the feelings and ideas that had yet to be expressed. I could feel an unspoken but palpable tension as his eyes remained fixed on mine. In the midst of this intense moment, I averted my gaze, attempting to collect my breath. Time seemed to stand still, as if all motion had come to a standstill, beckoning one to contemplate instead of take action. I didn't find clarity, but I did feel an unexpected emotional weight that made me wonder what this relationship actually means. As I placed my hands on his shoulders, I felt a reassuring presence that seemed to envelop me entirely, a combination of power and warmth. At that very second, the physical barrier between us vanished, and I could sense our breaths entwining, forming a close bond that embraced us both. All the pent-up emotions we'd been carrying around seemed to explode at that very second, crushing the air between us to a crumpled heap. Compared to the deep emotion that had always been a part of me, Ethan's youthful enthusiasm stood in sharp contrast. Anxieties and excitement surged through me as I stood at the entrance. Something fresh was about to begin, and I felt it in my very being. Everything we had been attempting to hide became apparent that night. Feeling the strain of the day gradually melt away, I surrendered to the comfort of the sofa. Despite the fact that I am physically exhausted, my mind won't stop racing. With each inhale, my breath was a constant reminder of the internal conflict I was experiencing. As my heel brushed across the plush fabric of my dress lying on the floor, a flood of memories rushed over me, each thread carrying the tale of a bygone era. I felt a deep and profound moment engulfed by the tremendous, quiet energy emanating from Ethan's gaze as he kept his eyes locked on me. Shortly after that, he knelt down and took the dress from me, his fingertips running along the spot where my foot had been, evoking a subtle introspection in me. Something profound was aroused in me even by that little deed. While I was holding the dress, I noticed a brief moment of doubt on his face. Nevertheless, it disappeared quickly, replaced by a determined expression that remained in my thoughts. As I saw, she carefully placed the dress aside and reached for the edge of the sofa with her hands. At that moment, there was a palpable stillness, as if the air were thick with feelings and ideas that had not yet been voiced. I climbed onto the mattress with a slight hesitation, my every step marked by calm reflection. I felt my heart sink as I observed her every step. She seemed to be negotiating a maze of unspoken feelings and ideas. I felt a combination of exhilaration and an irresistible pull as I saw his expressions change as he got closer. It seemed to speak to me on a profound level. Even though I was on the opposite side of the sofa from Ethan, I could still feel his warmth and the strength of our connection as I laid there. I felt the steady thudding of my heart as each pulse echoed inside me. I felt my breath deepen as I paused for a moment. A sudden realization swept over me as I watched him draw nearer. It showed me that the distance between us had almost disappeared, as if everything had changed and I was frozen in time. I felt like I was on the brink of something monumental. The realization hit me at that very second, and the intensity of the feelings whirling about inside me was nearly overwhelming. A perplexing blend of agony and elation swirled within me, compelling me to contemplate the profundity of my emotions. Looking up at the ceiling, Ethan's face became clear, and I was enchanted by the delicate way he ran his fingers through his hair, bringing it back from his forehead. The intensity of Ethan's feelings was palpable in his eyes. His radiant smile betrayed the boundless happiness radiating from within. His enthusiasm was contagious at that time. It was like he was radiating the joy that washed over us. I identified strongly with the emotion he displayed in all that he did as I observed him. I felt a depth of grief that I was unable to put into words as I noticed his difficulty breathing. Observing his effort to regain his breath gave me a profound feeling of connection as I saw him pour his all into everything he did. Ethan, our car's breakdown brought comfort since you have stirred sensations within me that are so deep. I just can't seem to get this hotel out of my head. Ethan murmured, his voice trembling with emotion. His remarks were like a weight. I could hardly breathe because of how heavy they were. A glimmer of doubt flickered in her eyes as I stared into hers, and a small quiver in her palms said it all. With every deliberate step, my muscles tightened like if I were clinging to a passing memory, wishing it would last just a little bit longer. After expressing his thoughts, he let himself to be lowered near me. I wish my father would never consider selling the car again, he observed. He closed his eyes and felt himself swallowed by the calm, letting his breath return to its regular rhythm. In that instant, I felt completely depleted, as if all my vitality had been drained and replaced with complete stillness. I couldn't tell you when sleep had lulled me to slumber, since my legs jerked so restlessly and I was so absorbed in the peaceful moments. After Ethan had the car fixed the following morning, I picked him up and he gently reminded me that we had to go get Thomas from where he was waiting in the city. A whirlwind of conflicting feelings, including regret, swept over me, yet just beneath the surface, a spark of anticipation ignited. The intensity of Ethan's gaze and the profundity of his movements both evoked strong feelings in me. I was bewildered by the complexity of the situation and unsure of what was ahead. My heart was being pulled in two directions at once by the overwhelming feelings and the whirlwind of questions in my head. There was one unwavering reality that held me steady in the middle of all the whirlwind emotions and ideas. For all I know, this trip is the juncture where things might change in ways I don't yet understand. If you've stuck with me this far, I can feel my tale has resonated with you on a profound level. I can't help but think back on the times we spent together. If you find this story interesting, please consider following us, enabling notifications, and commenting below. Every word you say is important on this path. Your ideas fascinate me, and I can't wait to hear how they compare to my own contemplations.